From coast to coast, the United States is home to some of the most chilling and mysterious forts, each holding dark secrets of battles fought and lives lost. These haunted fortresses are more than just historic landmarks. They are the lingering spirits of soldiers, prisoners, and innocent souls whose stories refuse to fade. Join us as we explore the top 15 haunted forts in the United States, where the echoes of the past still resonate in the present. 1. Fort Mifflin, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There's an unsettling silence that blankets the air around Fort Mifflin, a historic fortress on the banks of the Delaware River. Built in 1771, this place has witnessed bloodshed, desperation, and death. During the American Revolution, the fort was the site of one of the longest sieges in history, and it's said that the spirits of those who died in agony still linger here, restless. On stormy nights, the air grows thick, and the faint echo of musket fire seems to drift through the walls, as though the battle never ended. Ghostly figures of soldiers in tattered uniforms are seen pacing the grounds, their eyes hollow with the memories of battle. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps behind them in the dark, only to turn around and find nothing but the cold stone walls. The most chilling encounter happens near the old powder magazine, where a ghostly figure of a man in a tricorn hat is said to appear, staring out toward the river, forever waiting for the reinforcements that never came. For those who dare visit, the air grows colder as night falls, and the shadows seem to stretch, hiding something more sinister. Fort Mifflin is not just a place of history, it's a place of death, and the restless souls that remain are waiting for their story to be heard. 2. Fort Monroe, Hampton, Virginia. Fort Monroe, an imposing sentinel by the Chesapeake Bay, holds shadows that whisper of sorrow and unrest. Built in 1834, this fortress has seen countless souls pass through its walls, soldiers, prisoners, and even presidents. But it's the presence of one spirit, a towering figure wrapped in somber silence, that chills those who dare to walk its halls at night. Locals call him Lincoln's Ghost, a spectral echo of President Abraham Lincoln himself, who once visited during the Civil War. Strange footsteps echo down the corridors, and a cold, heavy feeling presses on the air. They say an anguished Confederate soldier, captured and held here, wanders the grounds, his face a mask of fury and despair. Shadows dance in the watchtower, moving when no one should be there, and the quarters once occupied by a woman who met a tragic end are now a hotspot for unnerving encounters. Doors slam shut, lights flicker, and the scent of her perfume lingers in the dead of night. Fort Monroe is alive with the past, its walls holding the restless spirits of a war-torn era, bound to this earth by unfinished business and the echoes of grief that refuse to fade. 3. Alcatraz Island, San Francisco, California. Alcatraz Island rises from the mist of San Francisco Bay, a fortress turned prison, where the cries of the damned still seem to echo across the waves. Known as the Rock, Alcatraz held America's most dangerous criminals, and its walls are said to hold their tormented spirits, trapped within its cold, unforgiving stone. Guards and inmates alike reported ghostly whispers and chilling, disembodied screams that would pierce the darkness. Cell 14D, a dark, solitary confinement cell, is infamous. It's where an inmate once claimed to see a creature with glowing eyes, just before he was found strangled by unseen hands. Even today, visitors feel an icy grip in that cell, a sense of dread pressing down like a weight on their chests. Alcatraz's deserted halls carry the scent of fear, and shadowy figures lurk in the corners, unseen but deeply felt. Perhaps the most disturbing presence is that of Al Capone, who reportedly played his banjo in the shower room. Some say on certain quiet nights, the faint strains of banjo music float through the air. Alcatraz isn't just haunted, it's cursed, a place where even the silence speaks of horror and despair that never truly left. 4th, Fort Delaware, Delaware City, Delaware. Fort Delaware looms over Pea Patch Island, a hulking relic from the Civil War that once held thousands of Confederate prisoners in bleak, cramped quarters. With its thick stone walls and damp, shadowed halls, the fort feels like it's soaked in despair, echoing the agony of lives cut short. Guards and inmates endured brutal conditions, and many never left alive. Visitors today report encounters with ghostly apparitions of soldiers, their faces pale and eyes hollow, wandering the empty barracks and darkened tunnels. A spectral sentry is often seen at his post, staring out over the Delaware River, his gaze unbroken as if still bound by duty. Strange footsteps echo through the corridors, heavy and dragging, as though the weight of invisible shackles still binds them to this earth. The most chilling spot is near the old kitchen, where a Confederate prisoner was said to have met a violent end. Witnesses report seeing shadows dart past, and a cold, unnatural chill hangs in the air, as if the fort itself is breathing, alive with the restless spirits of its tormented past. Fort Delaware remains a ghostly prison, where those lost souls still seem to await a release that may never come. 5th, Fort Warren, Boston, Massachusetts. On the misty shores of George Island stands Fort Warren, a shadowed relic from the Civil War era, shrouded in tragic legend. This granite fort is not only a historic landmark, but a vessel for a tale of love and loss that turned to horror. The story speaks of the Lady in Black, the ghost of a woman who tried to free her Confederate husband imprisoned here. Dressed in black, she snuck into the fort, but her mission failed, and she was captured. Facing execution, her last moments were filled with desperation and sorrow as her love died beside her. To this day, her restless spirit is seen roaming the fort, her figure clad in a flowing black dress, her face pale with grief. Visitors report a cold touch on their shoulder and whispers that seem to drift on the sea breeze, begging for mercy. Strange shadows flicker along the fort's darkened corridors, and an eerie wailing echoes through the night, chilling the blood of those who hear it. Fort Warren holds her spirit captive, bound by a tragedy that time cannot erase, leaving it haunted by the echoes of a love that met a bitter, eternal end. 6. Castillo de San Marcos, St. Augustine, Florida. Castillo de San Marcos stands tall and silent over the shores of St. Augustine, its stone walls concealing centuries of darkness and death. Built in the late 1600s, this fortress has borne witness to brutal sieges, deadly conflicts, and countless lives lost. Beneath its shadowed arches and cold coquina walls, the air feels heavy with a presence that never left. The most famous ghostly tale centers around a tragic love story. The wife of a Spanish officer, locked away by her husband in a dark cell as punishment for her betrayal. She perished there, forgotten, and it's said her restless spirit still roams the castle, a figure in white appearing along the ramparts at dusk, her mournful gaze cast over the sea. Visitors have reported feeling a sudden chill and hearing faint cries that seem to come from deep within the stone itself. Shadows shift in empty corridors, and the glow of phantom lights is sometimes seen floating through the fort at night. Castillo de San Marcos holds on to its ghosts fiercely, as if each stone remembers the anguish of the past, refusing to let the souls of the lost find peace. 7. Fort McAllister, Richmond Hill, Georgia. Fort McAllister lies hidden among Georgia's thick moss-draped oaks, a relic of the Civil War era haunted by the weight of old sorrows. Built to defend the South, the fort was witness to countless lives lost in brutal battles. As dusk falls, an unnatural stillness envelops the site, broken only by the faint echo of footsteps, as though soldiers still march to their posts. The spirit known as the Watchman is often seen standing guard near the fort's remains, a spectral figure in Confederate uniform, his face obscured in shadow. Visitors report a chilling sense of dread in his presence, feeling as if they're being watched. Near the earthworks, strange cold spots linger, and some claim to hear low, agonized whispers carried by the wind, as if the ground itself holds the memories of those who perished. The eerie glow of phantom lanterns has been spotted moving through the trees, lighting paths long forgotten. Fort McAllister is more than an historic site. It's a place where the spirits of the past refuse to fade, bound forever to the soil where they met their end. 8. Fort Snelling, St. Paul, Minnesota. Fort Snelling stands atop a bluff overlooking the Mississippi River, its walls steeped in the haunting memories of centuries past. Established in 1820, this fort saw battles, hardship, and despair, and today, its quiet corridors seem to hum with the echoes of the lives lost within. Among the spirits that linger, the most unsettling is that of a woman in white, believed to be the wife of a soldier who died suddenly, leaving her grief-stricken and alone. Her spirit has been seen wandering the grounds, her face pale and sorrowful, searching for a husband who never returns. Cold spots follow her path, and a deep, mournful wailing drifts through the barracks on misty nights, piercing the silence. Some visitors have felt an invisible hand brush their arm, and doors open and close with no one in sight. Phantom voices and footsteps echo in the old tunnels, as if the soldiers still keep their eternal vigil. Fort Snelling remains trapped in a cycle of restless spirits, a place where the past clings to the present, its ghostly sentries bound by memories that time refuses to erase. 9. Fort Point, San Francisco, California. Nestled at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge, Fort Point stands as a silent sentinel over the bay, its stone walls echoing with whispers of a violent past. Built in the mid-1800s to protect the city from naval attacks, the fort never saw battle, but its history is far from peaceful. Soldiers, prisoners, and those condemned to the fortress isolation left behind their spirits, forever bound to its shadowed halls. The most famous apparition is that of a soldier who took his own life after being haunted by the horrors of war. His ghost is seen pacing along the ramparts, his expression tortured, as if still hearing the gunfire in his ears. Visitors often report cold drafts and an inexplicable sense of unease, especially near the fort's eerie, unused chambers. The sounds of phantom footsteps and the clinking of chains are heard in the dead of night, as if the souls of long-forgotten prisoners still walk the darkened corridors. Fort Point is a place where the living feel a constant, suffocating presence, an overwhelming sensation that the spirits never left, still waiting for a release that may never come. 10. Fort Ticonderoga, New York. Fort Ticonderoga, nestled in the Adirondack Mountains, stands as a grim reminder of bloody battles fought during the Revolutionary War. Its stone walls have witnessed unspeakable horrors, violent skirmishes, sudden deaths, and the blood of soldiers long washed away by time, but never forgotten. The fort is rumored to be home to several restless spirits, but none as notorious as the haunting presence of a soldier named the Gray Ghost. Seen wearing a tattered uniform, he silently roams the battlements, his face expressionless and his footsteps soundless, like a specter of war. The most chilling accounts come from those who venture into the dark, quiet spaces within the fort. Cold, unseen hands brush against the backs of visitors, and eerie whispers fill the air, as if soldiers are still discussing tactics. Phantom cannons are sometimes heard firing in the distance, the deep boom rolling across the fort's grounds, but when searched, no weapons can be found. The fort's deep tunnels are said to trap those who dare enter, with an overwhelming sense of panic overtaking them, as if the spirits of the fallen soldiers are forever tethered to these walls, waiting for release that will never come. 11th, Fort Knox, Prospect, Maine. Overlooking the Penobscot River, Fort Knox in Prospect, Maine, is a haunting reminder of America's military past. Completed in the 1860s, this massive granite fortress was built to protect against naval threats that never came. But it's the spirits of the soldiers who were stationed here that are said to remain, their lives marked by loneliness and isolation. Visitors often report an overwhelming sense of dread when entering the fort's cold stone halls. The most chilling presence is that of a former soldier who died tragically during construction, His spirit is said to linger in the dark corners, his footsteps echoing through the fort's empty passageways. The cold air seems to follow him, and strange noises, metallic clangs and distant shouting, drift through the silent air, as if the fort is still alive with activity. But the soldiers are unseen. Those brave enough to wander the fort's lower levels have experienced inexplicable cold spots, the sensation of being watched, and even sightings of a shadowy figure near the old powder magazine. The fort's deep, unsettling silence is broken only by the whispers of the past, where the restless souls of soldiers still keep their watch. Fort Knox is a place bound by duty and death, where the spirits never truly left. 12th, Fort Washita, Durant, Oklahoma. Deep in the heart of Oklahoma, Fort Washita stands as a grim sentinel to a turbulent past. Built in the 1840s to protect settlers from Native American raids, the fort's history is marked by violence, bloodshed, and broken promises. The spirits of those who perished here, soldiers, Native Americans, and civilians alike, are said to haunt the desolate grounds, their restless souls trapped by the horrors they endured. The most famous apparition is that of a soldier who died in battle, his death so violent that his spirit lingers, forever bound to the fort. Visitors report hearing the unmistakable sound of boots scraping across the old wooden floors, followed by the unsettling clink of a musket's barrel. Shadows move in the windows of the crumbling barracks, and on moonless nights, the chilling scent of gunpowder fills the air. The eerie sounds of war, distant drums, faint cries, can still be heard drifting on the wind, a haunting reminder of the suffering that took place. Fort Washita is not just an abandoned site, it's a place where the spirits of the past still fight their battles, their anguish echoing through the silence. It's a place where the dead refuse to rest. 13. Fort Morgan, Gulf Shores, Alabama. Perched on the edge of the Gulf of Mexico, Fort Morgan stands as a solemn monument to the Civil War, its weathered brick walls guarding the secrets of a bloody past. Constructed in the early 1800s, this fortress was involved in fierce battles. Its cannons fired in the name of war, and countless soldiers met their end in the chaos. It is said that the spirits of those fallen soldiers still roam its grounds, forever bound to the fort where they fought and died. Visitors have reported seeing the shadowy figure of a Confederate soldier pacing the ramparts, his face frozen in a look of determination. The air is thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by the sound of disembodied footsteps and the occasional clang of metal, as if the ghosts of long-dead soldiers are still keeping watch. A particularly chilling encounter is said to happen near the old munitions rooms, where the oppressive feeling of being watched is overpowering, and visitors have felt cold hands brush against their skin. Strange, unexplained voices, sometimes a soldier's shout or a whisper of command, echo across the empty halls. Fort Morgan is a place where the past never truly fades, its spirits caught in the eternal struggle of war, trapped within its walls for all eternity. 14. Fort Adams, Newport, Rhode Island. Standing tall at the entrance to Newport Harbor, Fort Adams is a fortress with a history as rich as it is eerie. Built in the early 1800s to protect the coastline, it saw a variety of military conflicts, but its legacy is steeped in tragedy and loss. Visitors to the fort often report an overwhelming sense of unease, especially when walking through its dark, labyrinthine tunnels. The most notorious ghost is said to be a former soldier, who was tragically killed during an explosion in the fort's munitions room. His angry, restless spirit is often seen pacing near the old gun batteries, his face twisted in pain, his footsteps echoing through the cold stone halls. Those who linger too long near the fort's southernmost wall claim to hear whispers of soldiers giving orders in hushed tones, as though caught in an endless cycle of duty. Strange, unexplained cold spots are often felt, and ghostly figures in uniform have been seen standing at attention in the shadows. The fort is also home to the sounds of distant cannons firing, though no artillery is present. Fort Adams is a place where time feels distorted, as if the past refuses to release its grip, with the spirits of soldiers still trapped in the haunting silence of war. It's a place where the dead still march, guarding secrets they will never tell. 15. Fort Ontario, Oswego, New York. Nestled on the shores of Lake Ontario, Fort Ontario is a fortress that has borne witness to centuries of conflict, its walls steeped in blood and sorrow. Built in the mid-1700s, it played a pivotal role during the French and Indian War, the American Revolution, and the War of 1812. Yet, it is the restless spirits of soldiers and prisoners who haunt this fort that leave the deepest mark. The most chilling of these apparitions is said to be that of a soldier who died during the War of 1812, his life cut short by a brutal battle. His ghost, dressed in period military attire, has been seen pacing the ramparts, staring out over the water with an expression of longing and despair. Many visitors report hearing the sounds of muffled footsteps echoing in the fort's empty halls, as if unseen figures are still marching. Cold spots and the scent of gunpowder linger in the air, and disembodied whispers seem to fill the silence. In the fort's dark, forgotten corners, shadowy figures are often glimpsed, their eyes empty, forever searching for something lost. Fort Ontario is a place where the past never fully fades, a place where the dead still roam, their spirits bound to the very earth that saw their final moments. It is a place of mourning, a reminder that some souls are destined never to find rest. These eerie forts, each with its own unique haunting, remind us that history is never truly gone. It lingers in the shadows, in whispers, and in the spirits that never rest. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, the legends of these haunted fortresses leave an unsettling impression that will last long after you've left. Thank you for joining us on this journey through America's most haunted forts.